Welcome to the Workers and Resources Track Lane Test Area V2, and what I want to do in this video is check out a technique that has been suggested in the comments a couple of times since I made the first testing video. And this technique, it refers to the fact that rather than just laying straight electrical track as a single pass, what you do is do a whole area as standard track, and then you upgrade that standard track to a electrical track. People say that that is a more efficient way of doing things, so I thought, well, let's test it. Now, before I get started, there are a couple of caveats with this. First one is that I'm aware that this is going to be very much a like-for-like test, and there are probably ways that you could probably optimize the technique within your own Let's Play. But what I'm really interested in this test is a like-for-like comparison, which will give a baseline which any optimization processes can be run against. Also, for any normal players who just want to use the standard track layer and just want to get an idea of the best way to use the technique, that's the objective of this test. Now, for anyone who didn't watch the previous test video, I'll just run through the setup. What I've done is I've created this area here, which is going to support the construction office, and it's got, you can see I've got loads of workers here. We've got a food shop to make everybody happy, and what I did is I created this area and then I cloned it across, so these two areas are exactly the same. In the construction office, I did consider using the warehouse, the open store and the gravel store on auto purchase, but I thought for the purposes of this test, I think we can just use the internal auto purchase. And I think in some, because the trains are exactly the same, so if there's any inefficiencies, that should even out. And you can see I've already set up the assignment to the first test, which is going to be this straight run out here. And I think just for speed purposes, what we're going to do is kick this off and see how things go. And what you should get is they both come out there. The way the test is going to be conducted is that the lower track here is pure electrical. So we're just going to let this guy do his own thing. And on this top track, what we're going to do is let this train run out and lay all the standard track to this point here. And then when he runs back to this area here, just before the construction office, I'm going to pause the game and then upgrade these tracks to electrical and then restart the game. The reason for doing that is I don't want me to introduce a variable of me fiddling around trying to upgrade these tracks. That is the way the first test is going to be conducted, and while they're kind of running out this way, I'm assuming that they're going to stay neck and neck during this initial stage because they're exactly the same track layer and they started exactly the same time. The second test is going to be this area here, which is a mixture of short tracks, and I think this is where the technique is going to come into its own. It's laying these short tracks is where the fun's going to start, and then right out the end here I've got another series of short tracks, and of course what you've got will have once this track's finished is roughly a 1 kilometer run out to this area, and I think any extra trips is then going to tell even when both these trains have the same characteristics. And let's just see where my assumption is here. Now, what we will say is don't look at the bar at the top, because that will confuse you, simply because the train on the right has got an extra step to lay the overhead cables. So it looks like that the top train is gaining, but if you actually look at the number of work days, on the left hand side here you can see it's 46 work days, on the right hand side it's 45 work days. So from the perspective of laying the track itself, if I go to wireframe, you will see that they are virtually neck and neck at the moment. So the differences aren't going to open up until we get to this point here, because what will happen is well, just turn the wireframe off. Because what's going to happen is that the bottom track train will get to this point and then go back to the construction office to get the electrical components, where the top train up here, we'll just follow him and see if he actually overlaps into this next track, because this is where he will gain the advantage, and he actually has overlapped onto that track now. So this is where the two processes start to digress. So by being able to overlap past this junction here, the top train has got a slight edge over this train, but of course this train is just going to power out and lay these overhead cables pretty quickly. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut the video, and I will come back just as this top train here is completing his second segment. So here we are. this train here is now laying the last section of track, and I'm guessing he is going to have enough resources to be able to complete this job. Hopefully, if he stops a tiny fraction before the end, that may change the test completely, because you can see that the lower track guy is already halfway through that job. Okay, so he's now completed the job and he's going to run back. And what we're going to do is wait for him to get into this area here, and then I'll pause the game and do the reset. So we're just going to come in and pause. And what we're going to do is, I should be able to lay this track out here. You can see it immediately goes back to being under construction. And of course, to make it fair, I'm going to assign that there, and then we're just going to unpause. He will run back in again. So he is now laying the overhead wires, and he will lay those overhead wires all the way to the end. This guy is just on his last section of manual track in his cycle, so he's just finished now. So it's now coming a little bit of a close race, because all he's got to do is go back to the construction shed, and he will probably lay this section in 1 or 2 passes, or probably even 1 pass based on what this guy's doing. Question is, will he have enough resources to finish this track? I mean, it's going to be very, very close. And is he going to do it? So that's the end of the first test, and you can see here that the 2-step approach gained a slight edge over a 2-section piece of track. But what I will say is, if you laid out a great big long section of track, there would be no advantage of doing it. You might as well just let the train do the work for you. To me, it was really not much in it, because all you needed was for the train on the upper track to just stop a little bit short on one of these lengths of track, and then the lower train would have got the edge. So what I'm going to do is just let this guy finish off the track. They can both run back to the construction office, and then we'll set up the next test. Okay, now we are on to test 2, and what I've done is I've allocated the first track in this area, and what should happen is these trains should be able to go round and follow what they do. We'll just go and pause them, and they should both be out of the blocks. And this test is going to be conducted in the same way as the first test. What we're going to do is just leave the bottom guy to his own devices. We will not upgrade any of the electrical track until this train has finished all the standard track in this area. The way I'm thinking is, that's the way if you were playing in the game and you allocated a whole series of jobs to a track layer, that's what you do. You just let them get onto it and then come back and do the upgrades. So we're just going to let them get going. You see, this guy's already stopped, and he's actually moving forward. You can see the reason he stopped is that he had to come back and get the electrical components. And I think this is where the minor edge with the straight run out is going to start to tell. And because you can see up here, he's been able to lay a certain proportion of the next job. So we're just going to let this run and see how things develop. Welcome back for a little bit slightly earlier update, because what's actually happened is the train lane, the standard track, is coming round here. I'm just going to be quite interesting to see how far he progresses down this line, because in some ways, if he manages to complete this loop, he may actually shorten down the length of time it's going to get him to lay this track. So he may gain a little bit of an advantage here. Not intended, but oh no, he's run out like that. He's still going, even though he's empty. Well, is he actually going to finish that little bit of track there? No, he didn't quite finish it. Now, I'm going to be very interested now to see whether he's going to come all the way out round here and come in here, or whether he's just going to come through that little bit there. Oh, look at that. He's actually come straight through here, so he's able to reverse the track. And that is definitely going to give him an advantage as he lays the track out here. So, and just to come down and give you a bit of an update, you can see here the train laying the full electro track isn't that far behind, but he has dropped behind fairly considerably, because of course he can't take advantage of the bleed through into there. He can only lay that section. As soon as he gets to this junction, he has to go back and effectively come back out this way. So he doesn't get the advantage of that little bit of piece there. So we're just going to keep looking. So here we are. The standard track layer is now moving into what you could call the last phase of his first stage process. And I'm going to be quite interested to see whether he can get past this junction, which it looks like he will. And then he's going to have to go down here. But of course, he's not going to be able to lay both of these tracks at the same time. So he's actually going to have to come back and fill off those bopped sections. And probably more importantly, if he can't complete all this track like he's just done. So that means he's got 2 more trips to do, which could make a difference. But you can see down here, the train laying the full electric track is lagging behind quite considerably now, in the sense that all these little jobs and him having to keep running back and do things is now making a difference. And he's now started on this section of track, but of course he can only go that far, where up here this guy should be able to run to this end, but then he's going to have to go back to the depot. And I think this is where that's going to start having an effect up here. So you can see he's now got to go back that way. That's what I should have done, is put a little spur on up here, shouldn't I? Never mind. I think looking at this, you can now get an impression of how the technique gives you advantages when you're laying short lengths of track, which truthfully, if you're laying out a fairly complex rail network, these small lengths of tracks can be quite common. So we're just going to let him build it, and then he's going to run back to that section of track, and that's where we're going to stop him and electrify everything. I'm pretty confident this guy's going to come out the winner. What we're going to do is let him run back to there. We're just going to pause the game, and then we'll do a little bit of micromanagement. And I'm just going to come around to there and run you. Whoops. Run you to there. And to there. That lays all the track in there. So of course what we're going to need to do is do the auto assign back to there, and we'll see how things go. And what I'm going to do is concentrate on this upper track, because I want to see how far he gets laying the electronic components. Just make sure. Yeah, so he's following that route round. I'm going to need to keep an eye on that he's actually going to keep picking these jobs up. Okay, so he's literally laying, what, 3 lengths of track in a single pass. Is he going to make it to the 4th one here? Just have a quick look. Yeah, make sure. Wow. So he's literally gone all the way round to there. But what we're going to have to do, and again, this is one of the issues. Wow, hey, he's double backed. Hey, this guy's. Oh no, he's gone that way. Can we? I need to make sure that I auto allocate that. Of course, if you were doing this in the game, you would just have the auto assign on, which would be another element of this technique. But of course, I need to try and keep it relatively fair with respect to. Okay. We'll just allocate him in there. But I think this guy's going to win. So of course he can go out straight out there, but of course he can't do that bit. So he's going to have to go back into the and then come back. Yes, of course he's able to double back. Let's just see if he can double back. Nope. He puts him as the winner. But again, he's not that far ahead. And the question you've got to ask is, do you really want to do all that level of micromanagement for a little gain? So maybe if you're just laying track close to the construction office, that would be the issue. Of course, the real big one is going to be up here. We're just going to let him get back in the office. And this last test is going to probably be more representative of how you'd use the technique, because what we're going to do is stop. We're gonna, because he didn't actually finish this, so I'm just going to complete that track so he doesn't get confused. And everyone's back in. Right, the game's paused because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go for the auto assign. No, not the auto result, and put it onto 4.5 here, and again here. Keep on doing that. So we're now ready to start the third and final test, and we'll just make sure these guys are. Why are you not? Okay, you picked up the first one. Okay, they're both running out now. And of course, what they are now on is auto detect. And the rules are exactly the same as last time. As soon as the standard track train has laid out all this, I will then upgrade the track. But of course, the difference is that I don't have to worry about pausing the game because this is running back. I should be able to do the upgrades and they should all be picked up with the auto detect. But I will insist that he will have to finish all the standard track in this area before I actually do the upgrades. So again, this initial run out, I'm expecting them to be level pegging, but of course we need to compare the work days. And at the moment, the electrical guy is just ahead, but I mean, you're only talking the odd days. But I think the difference will now come on the second run out, because I don't think they're going to complete this in the first pass. No, they're not. But he stopped on 7 days. He stopped on 9 days. So there was a little 2-day average there, but I think that could be down simply to the speed of the auto detect and them leaving the shed there. So we're just going to keep an eye on this. And what I'll do is I'll show you a couple more run outs and then I'll cut the video and let the trains get on and build all this track stuff. So here we are. They've just completed their next run out. Of course, the big difference now is that this train's got to go all the way back to get the electrical components, where this train, because there was only a short length here, he's now able to push on around this track, and it looks very much like he may even complete this section. If he is able to complete this section, it's going to give him a really big lead with respect to this test. He's completed it and he's now actually on to the next section, and I think this is probably going to be more representative of what track lane actually is. As you can see, he's just, even that little bit of an edge there is going to make a difference. So what we've got now is the upper track is now gained almost a one job advantage over the train here laying the electrical track. And as I say, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut the video, and unless something really interesting happens, I'll come back once this all has been laid in. Welcome back. We are now reaching the point where the train laying the standard track is just about to finish his initial task, and he's actually taken quite an unusual approach to it, because what he's actually done is he laid the track out round here, and then for some reason he went back for this track. So if I unpause, you see he's going to come down here, and just to show you the comparable progress, you can see that the train having to lay the full electrical track is now getting way behind, and the reason for that is he can't take advantages of little dodges like this, where the train can adapt. And I think having to complete all these short sections through here is now starting to tell, because of all the extra journeys that the trains had to make back. But what I've actually been doing is paying a little bit of attention to what's going on, and they have done the same number of journeys. So what we're going to do is let this guy run round here. If I hook up here, oh no, it's going to go to there, and it's going to go to there. Right, I'm just going to unpause now, because the train should be able to put in all these. There's that little section there. I'm losing track now where I should be. And again, I think this is one of the hazards of taking this approach. I think I've done them all. Let me just make sure. I've done that one's electrical components. That one's electrical components. That one's electrical components. And I say this is one of the downsides of this technique, is trying to keep track of what has been laid. Oh, he's on his way out. I think the thing is he's got to lay this bit first. Yeah, it's just confusing me. And as I say, I think this is one of the downsides of using this technique, especially if you miss out sections of track, so you could stall things. Anyway, we'll just let this flow through. I think we could probably conclude that there is a clear winner here. What these guys are going to do now is just pick things up as they go round. You can see he's literally laid all this section of track right through electrical components. In fact, he's really powering it at the moment. I think he's going to literally wipe the floor with the just laying the tracks full length, because this is a single job from his point of view. He's still going. Wow. I mean, that one needs to be laid. That one needs to be laid. And you're not going to tell me he's going to get all the way around here. Nope. So he's going to need another pass to complete these 2 jobs here, or 3 jobs. In fact, it'd be very interesting now to see whether he will have the intelligence to go round these and come back to this one. You can just see now that the top train's coming out with the components to finish off the test. So I think I can now move on to conclusion. Conclusion, well, if you are laying lots of small track at distance, and I can emphasize at distance, and you are prepared to micromanage the track, there is certainly an advantage to laying the track in 2 stages. Now, on the converse side, I think if you're either working on small track close to home, I can't see there being much of an advantage unless you really want to micromanage the track to get maximum optimization. I think it also applies if you're doing long sections of track running away from the construction office, because I can't see the advantage of micromanaging long sections of track, but I can definitely see the advantage in this area. Now, I have thought of maybe another way to optimize this, and that is that you have 2 trains running, and then one literally laying the track, the other following with or laying the electrical components. But that adds another level of complexity of managing 2 trains working in the same construction area. But if you could split the construction areas up, that might work. And of course, another option is that you can use the UK25 to lay the base track, and then have another construction train to lay the electro components. The downside of that is, to really manage that properly, you would need 2 construction offices to do the allocations, because otherwise what you could have is the poor performing track layer taking over the responsibilities of laying the standard track. So that could be an issue. And I think at that point, this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. Any observations, feel free to chuck it in the comments. Any other tips about using this technique, feel free to put it in the comments. And what we'll do is we'll just go the outro from this video as this guy lays the last section of track. And that concludes the test. So until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.